Oh, I look fit now. Literally. Wait, let's see what it's
Ambulance emergency, is the patient conscious and breathing?
Yes, he is, but he's been stabbed.
Okay, so he's been stabbed.
Yeah, in the back. He's actually got a chest wound.
Is he bleeding very heavily?
Yes, he is.
How old is he?
He's a teenager.
And you say he's bleeding from his mouth?
He's bleeding from his mouth now, and I think he's actually going to go into cardiac arrest.
So what we need to do is start on chest compressions. So we need to go at 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
"13-year-old Olly Stevens strolls to a park in Reading to meet a girl on a Sunday afternoon. 13 minutes later, he'd be dead.
The door was banged really loudly, and I saw a boy there that I knew. He just said, "Ollie's been stabbed."
I ran into the field, and as I came through the hedge, there was somebody doing CPR on him, so I knew it was bad.
Olly had been stabbed in the chest. The depth that they penetrated, though, at the front we had 9 centimetres, and at the back it went in 17 centimetres into Olly's chest.
He punctured both lungs, and I was like begging him, don't leave me, Olly. And but the moment I held his hand, I knew he was gone.
A boy has died in violent and distressing circumstances, and his family and friends have been devastated by his loss.
Olly was just 13 years old. His parents were among the first on the scene after the stabbing.
We're thinking, why? Who would do this to Olly? Why has this happened? We needed to know it because he was ours.
2 boys were waiting in these fields, one with a knife ready to stab him over an argument which had played out on social media.
They were able to abuse, plot and murder my son. It's just pure evil.
Social media is at the heart of what killed Olly, and without it, he would still be alive. Olly came along on the 1st of November at 21:21. He was just a beautiful baby, beautiful looking baby, very calm, very easy to look after. It really was a golden time. We'd worked hard, we'd got this house, we had 2 children. His older sister was over the moon to have a baby to help me look after. Hold on to him tight. Oh, hello, Olly.
Olly had the traits that an older sibling might have, whereas I had the traits of a younger sibling. He was very protective of everyone he cared about, everyone he loved. He was lovely. He was a really good brother to me.
Sing like your dad.
He approached everything head on, feet first, didn't worry about the consequences, and for him life was an adventure. I kind of describe him as Peter Pan's shadow. He was always next to me, always wanting to learn. It was just great to be around.
Hello guys, and this is my first video.
Olly got a phone when he was in year 6 of the last year at primary school. We only considered it because he said he'd like to be able to walk up with a friend to school. and we wanted to know that he would be safe. Olly used to love making little films and clips and things. You quite quickly realise it's their private world and they don't want parents involved in it.
5 minutes, Mum's been crossing.
Stop lying to your mother!
He was very funny. You could tell that he had a lot of wit and he was very quick with it as well.
He always had his phone on him. He went through like a phase where he'd make really stupid videos and stuff like that. He just wanted to make everyone laugh.
I think what drew me to Olly is just his character. Like, he's not someone you meet every day, who's always just so fun to be around.
People liked him. He was just sort of very out there. He was very extroverted. So he sort of got known quite quick for being quite like that.
It didn't seem like he cared what other people thought about him. I didn't really think anyone could dislike Olly.
The investigation into this murder by Thames Valley's Major Crime Unit has been described as fast-paced. Detectives are out knocking on doors, collecting as much information and potential video footage as possible to try to work out who is responsible.
Within minutes of the incident happening, reports were coming into the news desk of a 13-year-old boy who had been stabbed in Emma Green, which is an affluent part of Reading. As reporters, we were trying to work out what had happened to him.
I needed answers. I needed to know who was responsible for taking my brother away. And I posted on my public story. I was overwhelmed with the response I got from people.
Social media afterwards was like crazy.
And there was loads of messages on a group chat. They were just blowing up my phone. There was a few of Olly's friends in there as well. But I remember I screenshotted the messages.
I guess I was just in fight or flight mode where I was just like glued to my phone almost, going through all these messages and just trying to collect as much evidence as I could and get it sent off to the police.
This was a very unusual case from our perspective. We were taken aback by the amount of digital evidence. It was probably, from my experience as a senior investigating officer, an unprecedented investigation in that respect. What we did see, and obviously which was one of the challenges in the very early stages of the investigation, was an awful lot of speculation, a lot of rumour that was going out on social media.
Head of Thames Valley Police's Major Crime Unit, said this remains a very active investigation and a large scene watch remains in place. A dog walker we spoke to said she went through the park at around 3:30 p.m. on Sunday and saw a group of youths standing round near the woods, describing the scene as slightly unusual.
We always have a debrief with the police commander on scene, and the discussions were around the fact that potentially Olly knew the people who had done this.
So quite quickly, all this sadness I'd been feeling for the last few hours kind of turned into this really powerful anger. Even though I was being sent like a large volume of evidence and things, it felt like it wasn't enough.
She was glued to it, coming over to me and trying to show me what she was being sent. And you've got this feeling of all the children trying as hard as they could to make sure that there was going to be justice for Olly.
There was lots of rumours about who had hurt him, who had stabbed him, and the same names kept coming up.
Jess.
Dan.
And Jack.
The identity of the 13-year-old boy stabbed to death yesterday on the outskirts of Reading has been released. He was Oliver Stevens, known as Olly, who lived locally.
Tonight, Thames Valley Police have urged anyone with any relevant information that might help them with their inquiries to get in touch.
People were sending me pictures of Dan and Jack, but I didn't really know what to make of that because I didn't even know who they were, really. I'd never seen their faces. So I was just very confused and very angry.
Jack was like friends with people that I knew. He just seemed like a very funny person. I think Dan was a lot more like alarming for me. I think the things I'd heard and things I'd seen, I was like, oh, I don't know, he just seemed a bit unhinged. I don't know if that's the right word.
I got a couple of videos about the two boys. Things were getting flown around with, you know, whether the boys were involved or, you know, what their involvement was.
I did know of Jack and Dan previously. I knew through Olly's friends, I knew through the conversations I'd had with Olly that they were on a mission to become gangsters.
Dark clothing, face coverings, balaclavas, hoods up, just portrayed this image of a wannabe gangster is the best way to describe it.
Olly knew he was different, and he told me that back in year 6.
He sort of stood out because he was very sociable. He had such a caring side. He always wanted to look out for people, and then there was that vulnerable side.
Olly was very self-conscious. He didn't have a very high opinion of himself, and because he didn't have a high opinion of himself, he pretty much felt that nobody else did.
You're going to go for the style we discussed,
Yeah.
which is shave
You
at
shave the sides, I cut my fringe, and we like style it.
Style it up and back like Chris from Love Island.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He started to report back that he wasn't so settled in class. He said, I'm finding it hard to focus. I'm finding it hard to know what I need to do. It took us 14 months in the end to get Olly's diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. In the months leading up to him leaving primary school, Olly was flagging more and more that he was very, very worried about going to secondary school.
There was an incident with our daughter. She was being bullied at school and they tried to push her down the staircase while somebody filmed it.
We now know that's called patterning. The whole idea of patterning is that you are humiliated and it's filmed and then it is shared. We did involve the police because we were concerned for her safety at school. Now, this is all information that Olly would have been aware of, age 10 or 11, as he's just about to transition into secondary school.
That really scared him because he thought, if my older sister's getting picked on, then who can I have to protect me? And I think that's what maybe led to him seeking out older boys as protection, because then he knew he'd be equipped to go to secondary school and he knew that he'd be protected.
He had a genuine fear, and I think that maybe befriending some older characters that maybe were kind of known to be characters you don't mess with meant that if he was close to them, that he would be untouchable.
He made a few friends on social media, but really he had made these associations with like dangerous people.
I think he was looking for people that would give him an image that, you know, people wouldn't want to mess with.
It wasn't really Olly. Like, he was just a little sweet little soul, and then he just, I don't know, just kind of changed. And I think without realising, he just mirrored that and copied what they were doing.
So I would be quite shocked and surprised at some stuff he would post sometimes, because I thought, that is just not Olly. It was scary because he was so young, so easily influenced. He had never thought about the dangers or the harm, and he just got pulled in. I think one time he had like I think it might have been a balaclava or something, and I just said to him, like, are you for real? Like, how did you even get that? You look ridiculous.
He was just, I don't know, sort of getting like brainwashed.
Teenagers aged 13 and 14 have been arrested after a 13-year-old boy was stabbed to death in Reading.
Jack handed himself in at a local police station. It was at this point that he admitted to manslaughter. Police then visited Jess's house and arrested her. Officers were able to speak to the younger boy, Dan, and later arrest him as well.
Ollie got his bike in the Christmas of his 12th year, so his 12th birthday.
Ollie was so excited when he got that bike. It did look really cool.
Ollie was very good at wheelies. It was quite impressive, to be fair. Because he was younger as well. I think he's a very talented person. He could like pick stuff up, and we used to go out quite a lot. I mean, just film each other, have a good laugh.
I can remember seeing him ride past, and I felt really proud of him because he was going out exploring the world.
He would just go out on his bike, and we wouldn't know where he's going or who he was seeing.
Ollie said, can I go out now? He always used to want to go out about 3 when it was the end of the school time and he could go out. And I'd finished work and I said, OK. And I thought he'd just be local. I looked at the phone and I thought I'd just check his location. And it was moving very fast. I thought, my God, he's on a train. At this point, I could see he's arrived in Paddington, and then I thought, well, your phone's died or you've turned your location off, because I couldn't see where he was anymore. A worrying period went by where we didn't have contact with him, and then we can see that he's on the locator coming back to Reading.
When I picked him up from the station, it was as if nothing had happened. I asked him what gone on, and he just looked at me and said, snitches get stitches, Dad.
Officers this afternoon confirmed the police have been given extra time to question a 13-year-old girl, a 13-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy before they're either charged or released.
When the police went through all of the devices and phones that they seized, they were really shocked by what they discovered. There were thousands of messages, videos and images that helped them to piece together their investigation.
What we've found in terms of how social media is being used to share images of weapons and violence, these virtual relationships, almost this virtual life, this online life, this second sort of identity.
Because I was going to set him up, innit? If he comes G, I promise you I'm poking a knack through his head.
It was near the end of June. Ollie appears at our front door with his auntie. And she said Ollie called us because his bike's been stolen and he was scared to tell you. He said to her that he had gone to meet his friends, and I use this term very loosely, friends. They'd offered to buy him a drink. He'd left his bike outside and they had left their e-scooter.
Ollie comes out of the shop, his bike's gone, he's devastated. He's very upset, and I went in to chat with him, and then the phone rang, and it was this Jack on the phone saying, you know, I'm your friend, I can get your bike back. You just have to bring me the money to a certain place. And I think in that split second, Ollie realised that this could be dangerous, and he gave me the phone, And I just sort of said to him, you stay away from my child, and before I'd finished the sentence, he'd hung up and he was gone. My alarm bells were going off because it just didn't sound right at all. And I said, why do they want you to turn up to collect the bike? And he said, because they want to stab me as a punishment. That's the way it works. Didn't really comprehend what I was hearing. It was just, you're talking about 12-year-olds stabbing each other. Obviously, I just felt sick because what had he got himself involved with?
And then I get contacted by Olly's auntie. And she admits that Olly says to her that he's been in a gang and he was recruited to go to London. That was just horrific. I was worried for Olly's safety and I was worried for our family's safety. So we start the whole process with the police, registering it as a stolen bike, giving the serial number, telling them where. The police are then looking into, is there CCTV? Due to safeguarding, moved up a level and Olly got a social worker. And Forest was a godsend to us.
The referral came into me late 2020. There were some concerns over possible criminal exploitation. And when I went into Olly's home, I thought to myself, well, why are you getting involved with your bike being stolen, or there's a suspicion of criminal exploitation, you know, and you're living in this context. From what I could see, you're in a comfortable environment, a secure neighborhood, loving parents, both mum and dad are present. And as Olly began to talk to me about some of the things he was involved in, some of the people that he had been introduced to, he was worried about telling his parents. He felt he would jeopardize his family because he felt that these people had, as he would say, they've got a reputation, Forrest, they've got a reputation. When a gang wants to bring someone into their clutches, they're going to groom the individual. It could be just doing favors for them, protecting anyone troubling you, we'll take care of it. Right? So you feel confident and secure and accepted, and then the gang will ask you to do favors for them, because come on now, you owe us now. And so the young person will feel obliged to actually do the favor. Olly shared with me the truth in terms of having to go to London. The Reading gang had given him some money to go on the train and purchase a machete from an individual. Olly met the adult male, took out the money to give and get the machete. The person took the money, punched him in the face, and disappeared. I said to Olly, Olly, that sounds like a setup. That sounds like the person who took the money was part of the same gang. It's a tactic that gangs use. You've lost our money and you haven't brought back our goods. You owe us some money. You are indebted to us.
Because he thought those people were his friends, he wanted to stay loyal to his friends, and this is one of his traits. He hadn't realised that he was in danger.
I now look back on that time and feel so awful because I thought we were protecting him, but there was another level of almost how much protection he needed. I don't know how we ever got to this situation. Why as a family, a lovely family, he was vulnerable and he was exploited. We wanted him out of there. So we pulled him away and he pulled away from them.
I felt assured on my last visit that he was in a safe place. I brought the completed assessment, and for some strange reason, I just felt propelled to say things to him like, Olly, if trouble comes your way, I said, just run.
Hey, what? I'll go to college? I leave my yard in 10 minutes. Rent a chauffeur with you.
Fam, this is to hated DZ1. I'm giving killing.
The three teenagers, aged just 13 and 14, arrested in connection with the fatal stabbing of 13-year-old Olly Stevens, have all been charged with murder. They're expected to appear in Reading Crown Court in June.
You know, once we kept him in from June, he was in, you know, the majority of the time. Olly's world was this house.
I was always monitoring what Olly was doing on his phone from afar, really. You know, if he was on his phone for a long time, I would walk in and say, oh, what are you doing? This thing was on his phone. I said, what's that all about? And it was gone before, you know, I could follow it up. I said, well, yeah, tell me what that's all about. And he just wouldn't go into it, wouldn't tell me.
Olly was part of the group with these two boys, Jack and Dan. There was a video of a young boy being patterned or humiliated.
You can just see him get slapped and you see him getting punched. And he's being told to say something. He has to apologise. What we know now is that Olly saw this video and that Jack and Dan posted laughing emojis. And Olly, of course, would be appalled.
Olly'd asked me a question which, when I look back, was probably the pivotal point. He said to me, you know, if you knew somebody was being bullied, would you tell the family? And I said, well, if it was happening to your sister, would you want to know? And he said, yes, I would.
Olly knows who this boy's older brother is, so he sends it to him. But of course, with Jack and Dan, they're then furious with Olly, absolutely furious. He's a snake, he's a snitch, he's a grass.
He was just a very protective, loving person. He only did it because he cares. Like, he didn't do it to, you know, be a big man or anything.
He stuck by his morals and he kept loyal to himself. From him sharing that video to the correct people, just doing what he thinks is right.
Olly was very fearless. Like, I don't think he really kind of sensed the dangers and things. He was always so willing to, like, stand up for his friends, and I don't think he realised how bad things could be.
Jack and Dan decided that they were going to seek their revenge on Olly, and that coincided with the argument that Olly had with this Jess. Olly had known Jess for a while. She'd been in and out of our house. She wouldn't speak to us, she wouldn't look us in the eye, but, you know, Olly spent time with her.
From what I knew of Jess, I think she was able to have a hold on people and she was able to manipulate those people around her very easily.
He'd always stand up for her. Even if I was saying something that was true, he'd always see the good parts in someone.
They'd had a falling out. Only time I've ever seen him angry. And that's when I really sort of put two and two together. She's not healthy for him, she's toxic. The only reason he walked to that field because he wanted to make things right. He wanted to patch it up with her. What we know now is that this was an opportunity for her to get back at Olly, but also for the boys to get even. So it was a perfect storm, really.
Olly texted me randomly yesterday and was like, oh, do you want some cigarettes? And I was like, yeah, because Jack wants me to set him up. So Jack is going to go bang him and pattern him and shit. I'm so excited, you don't understand.
Jack and Dan met at Cemetery Junction in East Reading before they made their way to Bugs Bottom Park in Emma Green. It's here that they met Jess, where they were to then go and approach Olly at the top of Bugs Bottom Park.
just suddenly said, oh, he was going to meet Jess. And then he started to get ready, and he seemed in a good mood. And I said to him, oh, you're ever so handsome, you know. And I remember him just sort of looking at me, and his hair was quite long with the perm, then he sort of lifted it to look. And he said, take a picture then. And I said, what do you mean take a picture? I said, I haven't got my phone with me. And he said, a mental picture. And we had that moment, and it was really precious. Alarm bell should have rung because I looked down the road and usually Jess was dropped off by her mum, but her mum's car wasn't there. And I think I might have even said that to Ollie, and he said, oh, I'm meeting her in there, pointing to Bug's Bottom. And he gets to the door, he goes, I'll put my location on. I said, oh, good, okay. And he said, love you. And I said, love you.
At the top of the hill, the boys, Jack and Dan, as well as Jess, ambushed Ollie. Ollie was able to kind of hold his own at that point. He was fighting back and got the upper hand in the fight. But then the younger boy pulled out his knife, and it was at that point in the ensuing seconds that Ollie was stabbed. The boys and Jess departed down the hill. A passerby had seen what had happened and called 999.
Ambulance emergency, the patient conscious and breathing.
Yes, he is, but he's been stabbed.
Okay, so he's been stabbed?
Yeah, in the back. He's actually got a chest wound.
Is he bleeding very heavily?
Yes, he is.
How old is he?
He's a teenager.
And you say he's bleeding from his mouth?
He's bleeding from his mouth now, and I think he's actually going to go into cardiac arrest.
There was a knock on the door, and then I heard Amanda scream, what do you mean he's been stabbed? So immediately I flew down the stairs.
And I was quickly just trying to put my trainers on as fast as I could.
Bearing in mind this is only 200 yards from our house, I ran into the field, and as I came through the hedge, I looked up at the field to where he was, and there was somebody doing CPR on him, but it was all the faces of the people, and you could just see the horror on their faces.
The incident came through on my pager. I travelled on emergency conditions to the location. So there was a lot of activity, a lot of police cars, lots of ambulances, many of them with blue lights on, so I knew it was a critical case. The body cam footage really takes you back to the scene. It gives the police a record of how things were when they arrived and exactly what people said.
Cardiac arrest.
Cardiac arrest.
She was with me as well when this all happened.
It's not very clear, but you can see the effort that the nurse was putting in. It's a distressing watch.
And I'm a cardiac nurse as well, which is why I...
Good, thank you.
So he's had some proper, complete chest compressions from me.
Just remember running over, and I saw my dad. He was just like waving his hands, and I thought he was smiling. I thought that it was maybe just been a lie. But as I got closer to him, I was just seeing that he was actually just hysterically crying. That was the moment it hit me that Ollie was potentially dead.
I got to my knees and got hold of his hand, and I was like begging him, don't leave me, Ollie. And I said, they've actually done it, they've actually killed him. He landed an ambulance, air ambulance, right next to him in the field. The surgeon came over, and I think they performed open chest surgery on him to try and keep his heart going.
A lady came across and she introduced herself. She was the doctor, she was the surgeon who'd been flown in, and she just said, I'm so sorry.
We were invited into the ambulance to say goodbye, but we couldn't go near him because you're contaminating a crime scene, and my son was a crime scene.
And I just said, I'm so sorry, Ollie. I'm so sad that this has happened to you. I love you. We came out of the ambulance and the doors closed and we just stood there and hugged each other.
Jess, Jack and Dan all tried to delete messages from their phones, from their social media apps after Olly was stabbed. I think they probably thought they could maybe get away with this if police couldn't find their messages.
I just felt really angry, and I'd kind of pieced together that Jess had set him up because he was going to the field with the intention of seeing her. I just messaged her. The way she was speaking to me, it's like she hadn't had anything to do with it. I even questioned if it was her fault or not.
The policeman arrived and he just said, your son, why was he here? And I said, he came to meet Jess. And he said, is Jess here? And I said, no, Jess isn't here. He said, we need to speak to Jess.
The trial begins today into the murder of Olly Stevens, the schoolboy from Reading who was stabbed to death in January. A 13-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy, who both can't be named because of their ages, appeared in court this morning, charged with murder and conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm.
We never saw Jess because her legal team had put in a plea of manslaughter and admitted to deleting data and apps.
We felt we had to sit through all of it because I wanted to understand every single item of why we were in that room that day.
We wanted to know everything, however painful it was, we needed to know it. But nothing could have prepared us for how it felt to sit in a court environment, really in silence, and see the two defendants come in. Jack's dad would always go to hug him when he came in the morning. You'd see him and he'd go up and they'd give the biggest of hugs. And in your heart you're just screaming, we can never hug Olly again.
Part of the defence case of the boys was that they said, we thought that Olly might attack us.
You're thinking all the time, what will the jury think about that?
What they were portraying in court, you know, they were good boys, you know, one of them was a grade A student, you know, never hurt anybody. It couldn't have been further from the truth.
The jury here at Reading Crown Court were told by the prosecution today that the attack had been planned by the defendants in the days leading up to it and was motivated by perceived grievances with Olly.
Two boys, both now 14, were waiting in these fields, one with a knife ready to stab him over an argument which had played out on social media.
The evidence that was shown in court, a lot of it was videos that were obtained from both defendants' phones of them holding and playing with knives. There were voice messages which showed them bragging almost about what had happened.
It was me and my boy, innit? I started slapping him up and then my boy backed out and fucking shanked him. Hey, what? I'll go college. I'll leave my yard in 10 minutes. Run a cheffer with you.
The older boy said to the younger boy, bring the knife. He said it. What happened was Jack fighting Olly. He said himself Olly was coming off better, and then that led to Dan stabbing him twice. The two of them at one point, one was fighting Olly and the other was reaching over and stabbing him. They did it together. I think the jury were out for, I think that was going to be the 5th day when they actually came back right at the 11th hour and said that there was a decision.
Honestly, my legs just went to jelly. But we took our seats.
And when they said guilty,
it feels like the floor just gives way and the pit of your stomach just goes, and it just went quiet. And I had Olly's rugby shirt with me, and I just buried my head in his rugby shirt for a minute because it was just such a powerful moment. There's no sense of victory in this because everybody's lives have been shattered.
Jess received an initial sentence of 3 years and 2 months for manslaughter. However, this was then extended on appeal to 5 years in custody. The verdicts found Jack and Dan guilty of murder. Dan received a sentence of 13 years minimum. The older boy, Jack, received a minimum sentence of 12 years in custody.
The word shocking has been used on many occasions in connection with the circumstances of Olly's death, and quite rightly, it is the right word. And I think as a society, as a community, we should be shocked.
The fact that some of them posed online with knives and they covered their faces tells me that they knew right from wrong. But the influence of maintaining a particular profile on social media prevented them from saying, do you know what we're about to do is dangerous, we're not doing it.
I believe social media played its role in Olly's death. No, they didn't hold the knife, but they allowed these children to communicate, and we need to hold these companies accountable for the platforms with which they are enabling people to harm each other.
We joined a group, the Bereaved Parents for Online Safety, and I'm sure a lot of them feel that same feeling of guilt that we feel of we should have been able to save and protect Olly.
We've been up to the House of Commons many times.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very sorry to hear about the case that the honourable gentleman raises. My thoughts are with Olly's family. He's absolutely right that we should do everything we can to tackle the scourge of knife crime.
They just want to help other parents recognise the dangers of social media and what's happened to Olly, and that it could happen to anyone.
Like, Olly was just, words can't describe how just lovely he was, and I think that's how I want him to be remembered, not this front he put up for, you know, social media and his friends.
I found this the other day. He said, when I grow up, I want to be happy, and my message to my friends is, be happy, life's too short to be sad.
He was always caring, always loving, always looking after other people. Even though he had his own struggles, he just seemed to connect with people. He had great empathy for people. He was a special kid, and you know, we loved that about him. It was amazing that he was like that.
The Online Safety Act is definitely part of Olly's legacy. And it is that feeling of he will be remembered for what he was all about, which was protecting other children and caring, and that feeling of kindness.